Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm Deacon John Blehosh, and I have with me a guest today, Deacon Pete Gummere. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're in the shows together, haven't we?
Several.
Several we have. Okay. The reason why I
Lost
invited, yeah, right. I invited Deacon Pete down is because I think that when I saw in the news that the state of Vermont is going to legalize abortion, and I know that there's other topics that have disturbed me in regards to the legislature, in regards to the state of Vermont, I thought that it'd be a good time to do a show with Deacon Pete about what he thinks about the moral state of the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
And your background in bioethics would be a good way to start.
Reference point.
Go ahead.
Well, here's a couple of things. Number one, abortion has been legal in Vermont since a year before Roe versus Wade, due to a Vermont Supreme Court ruling called Beecham versus Leahy. And that was a case which was brought by a physician by the name of Jack Beecham, who had been asked to perform an abortion for a particular woman. And he filed a petition with the court to protect him should he do this.
Right.
Now, so abortion has been legal from that point on. A year later, Roe versus Wade came into effect. So even if, as some people are suggesting, Roe versus Wade would be overturned by the current Supreme Court,
Right.
Beecham versus Leahy is still the binding court decision in Vermont.
Right.
So it is already legal.
Right.
And now some of the advocates for this Bill H-57 have said, well, this does nothing but just protect abortion, and it doesn't go any farther than Roe does. Well,
Right.
it actually does, because Roe talked about the third trimester as being a time frame in which states could pass reasonable legislation that would still allow abortion in hardship cases, but they could regulate it.
Right.
Beecham versus Leahy was no regulation, and so H-57 really puts into force the provisions of Beecham versus Leahy, which essentially means all 9 months it's legal.
Right.
Problem, there's several problems with this. Number one, they often talk about women having a right to choose. Well, let's look at a situation where a woman is coming in, she's confused, she's shocked, she is on the fence about what to do about this pregnancy.
Yeah.
And the first thing that physicians or nurses or other healthcare people are going to suggest is, well, you can go to such and such and have an abortion. Do they mention, well, you can also go to a given pregnancy care center, pregnancy support center, which may be operated by one of the churches or community of churches in an area, and offer some support and counseling and in some cases even material support to the young woman,
Right.
so that she can carry this baby.
That's right. That's right.
So that's one of my objections. Number two, they talk about choice. I'm going to tell you 3 stories, 3 very specific cases where I know for a fact women were on the fence about this. I was sitting in my office at the hospital in St. Johnsbury one day, and a young woman came in and said, "Can I talk to you?" Now, this was long before I was ordained a deacon. This is long before I was really active in ministry.
Correct.
And she said, "Can I talk to you?" So-and-so, who was her boyfriend, had just come into her department and was harassing her and trying to coerce her into having an abortion.
Correct.
The boyfriend when she resisted the thought, started punching her in the abdomen with the intent of forcing or starting an abortion.
Right.
So, I think in that situation, the woman's choice was to carry this baby,
Correct.
and it wasn't being respected.
That's right.
The second case was very similar. I was sitting in my office, and one of the supervisors from another department came in and said, "Can you help me with this?" It was late afternoon, and a young woman was being threatened by her boyfriend that she would never carry a pregnancy to term.
Correct.
And she had a restraining order against him, but he apparently was threatening to come into the hospital that night because his mother was ill. Well, lo and behold, I said, simple solution to this one, call the sheriff.
That's right.
And we had the sheriff come in. I hired him for the night to simply watch over this woman. And sheriff deputy came in and said to the young lady, there is nothing that you have done wrong. What he's doing is illegal. It's improper. It's going to be the consequence of his own action.
Correct.
And that's how you need to look at it. And I'm here to protect you and to make sure that you can do your job. And also, I'll never be outside of your field of view, or you'll never be outside my field of view, unless you go into the ladies' room.
That's right, yeah.
And then the other thing is, if the boyfriend came in, he would get an appointment with a judge, and depending upon how he behaved, he might spend the night in the correction center. So this was very reassuring to her. Two cases on my job, quite unrelated to any question of ministry. This was just being a manager.
That's right.
And the third one, I happened to notice that a daughter-in-law had a little bump on her forehead, and I asked her about it because I was concerned, gee, is this a cyst or something that needs to be looked at by a doctor? And she said, oh no. A previous boyfriend, when she had become pregnant, had started beating up on her and threw her to the floor. She hit her head, and that was a mark that she continues to bear. Nice story on all three of those is that they did deliver their babies, and as far as I know, all three are healthy and doing very well. But this is supposedly choice.
Right.
What are we doing to really protect these women?
Correct.
H-57, I specifically asked them, can we put something in to protect women from domestic abuse or physical coercion?
Correct.
And that didn't happen. What about provision that the fetus would have no legal status in Vermont? Well, that raises some questions. What about injury that the baby may have sustained as a result of either malice, some malicious act, or some act of negligence?
Correct.
The baby would have no recourse if carried to term. And I know of a number of women who have been exposed to pharmaceutical agents or what have you when they were in the uterus with because their mothers had been put on medications.
Correct.
And so the whole thinking is to deny the humanity of the unborn.
Correct.
So I think that's a major concern. It continues to be a major concern of mine, and I don't think that the legislature is thinking these things through, or if they are, they're simply thinking in terms of this right to abortion being something they need to protect legally, And I'm not sure that that's really what the public wants. You know, both sides of the argument talk about, you know, the pro-choice side says the majority want abortion to be legal. The pro-life side says the majority wants some restrictions.
Correct.
And the fact of the matter is that both are correct. The pro-life side references surveys that have determined that a large number of people think some restriction on abortion would be appropriate. But the pro-choice side says, since those people that want some restriction still want it to be legal,
Right.
that they're right.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, I
Right,
think.
exactly.
The reality is that
Yeah.
the human life from conception
To natural death.
to natural death
Yeah.
is one particular
Right.
person the whole time.
Right. Couple things that, you know, first of all, this isn't the first time that situations arose in Vermont. Like, we went at it with the doctor-assisted suicide.
Another one.
And then another thing is, it's amazing is that we have an opioid crisis. And I was watching the channel the other day, and this person that was a governor of a state at one time said if he was still governor, he would vote against it because marijuana is coming into use now and legalized. That's opening the door for more substance abuse.
Yeah.
We've already got a crisis going on in the country.
Yeah.
Now we're giving people permission to start at the bottom, work to the top. It doesn't make any sense, he said. It's unreal.
Yeah.
And Vermont's one state now that's looking at this too. So I don't know where the legislature in Vermont stands in regards to looking at human life. How much does it cost a human life? I mean, they're looking more at taxes, bringing in revenue, and generating money than they are. That if all these things happen, the cost of a human being is nothing to them.
Yeah.
I mean, life is nothing. And then on top of that, I was reading an article that we have abortions, and yet the baby is still born, and they now they're going to say they're going to leave it on the table and let it die a natural death.
Yeah.
I mean, how inhumane, how cruel can they be? I mean, you can't say that it isn't a human being when you see it right there in front of you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's called infanticide.
This,
And
I know.
you know, interesting thing, going back in history, one of the things that the Romans noticed about the early Christians
Right.
was that they cared for these infants
Right.
that had been abandoned by
Right.
others.
Right.
They would even adopt them.
Yeah.
And this was contrary to what the Romans thought
That's right.
at that time. And so I think we can say that the church, going back to its very beginning,
Yeah.
was a pro-life
Protect the
institution.
law. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that that's an important.
No. If you
Put
look back
that
at,
in
if I'm not mistaken, in history, the Spartans were the same way, that if a baby was born and they felt that it wasn't capable of being a strong individual, they would just put it out to, you
Yeah.
know, and leave it at one side.
Yeah.
But these civilizations, the Romans and the Greeks, eventually destroyed themselves because of their moral
Yeah.
laxity.
Yeah. And you know, I think that this is actually an interesting point, John. I think that the church has an incredible opportunity, not only as a moral teacher, but an incredible opportunity to preach one of the great commandments,
Right.
love of neighbor.
Right.
And I think that is something which really resonates with people.
Right.
You know, you look at the whole question of social justice, which keeps on showing up
That's
in
right.
all
It
kinds
does.
of different areas.
That's right.
It's based upon human dignity. And it is the recognition of the inherent dignity of every person brings us our Catholic social teaching.
Correct.
And it also brings us our Catholic teaching on pro-life issues,
Right.
on human life issues.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity the church has to evangelize all of Vermont with this message.
Correct.
And the love of God.
That's right.
The love of God and our call to love one another.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the bishop recognizes that, and we've been discussing how do we bring the good news to the people of Vermont.
That's right.
How do we strengthen our church? How do we strengthen society?
Right.
Well, I think that reintroducing some of the traditional moral code
Yeah.
is going to be part of it.
That's right.
But also
That could be the basis of the beginning right there. So
bring in the
foundation.
love of God.
Right.
And I think that this is where we're headed right now in Vermont.
I hope so, because I think that what is happening is that human beings. Well, let's go back one and say that this country has become godless,
Yeah,
and we live in a culture of death.
yeah,
And it's shown through our actions, whether it be abortion, if you want to call it euthanasia, and then even to a point almost saying genocide to some situations.
Oh, yeah.
And then we take that and we look and we put it out into the public, and then we see the anger in people,
yeah,
the road rage. People shoot first, ask questions later.
yeah,
So what I'm saying is that if life has no respect from the womb, nobody's going to care about it later on, whether
Yeah.
you're an adult or a teenager or whatever. I mean, if you had respect for life, then we wouldn't have the mass killings, we wouldn't have the stabbing, the shootings, or whatever in society, because it begins with life. That's what all.
You know, one of the things that is missing from our culture as a whole is a sense of why it is right, why it is wrong to do certain acts.
Correct.
And you know, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, what's right or wrong is a matter of personal opinion. I think no, that what's right or wrong can be discerned logically from just the very principle that we started with of human dignity.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
if you are
Respect the person.
respecting the person,
Right.
you behave one way. If you
That's
don't
right.
respect people, you behave another way.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that is something that is absolutely critical, and
Right.
we've got to take that message out.
Right.
So
Yeah, and we start right from the beginning. Now, to take it one step further in regards to society, we have no longer the family as a family as such.
yeah,
Marriage no longer is as we used to believe in it. So we've actually taken some of the rules and we've changed them around to fit our particular needs. But in the meantime, we destroyed the foundation.
Mhm.
And from that point on, if you have no foundation to build on, you have nothing
yeah.
to keep everything going.
And I think the one issue that over and over again I've seen indications that where you have both a mother and a father in a family, the children fare much better.
Yes.
Not only in terms of economically,
Right.
but also in terms of behavior and also in terms of growing up to be responsible citizens.
That's right.
I think that balance
It does.
is really
you,
needed.
you need the male figure and the female figure.
Yeah,
Because it does justice to the children, because they understand the soft touch, and not really the hard touch, but the touch of where there's a reason for it, that there's the authority figure plus the soft touch of the mother.
Yeah.
And they understand this.
yeah,
And I was reading an article the other day. This lady was raised by two lesbians, and she became a mother herself. But she said that, you know something, she said, now I understand, even though these two women were good to me, that there has to be a father and a mother in the family to make it run the way it should be. And she respected the women that brought her up, but she also saw that there was a reason for this. There's a reason for having a husband and a wife and children
Yeah.
in a normal type family situation.
And I think that's one of the other issues that we need to.
Right. And
Consider.
my wife and I were talking the other day that a friend of ours said that their granddaughter came into the room one day and had two Barbie dolls, and the lady was sitting at the table with her husband and her son, and this is her granddaughter, and the granddaughter came in and said, "This is a mommy and this is a mommy and we're a family."
Mm-hmm.
And the father lit up and said, "Where did you hear that?" He said, "This is what they taught me in school."
Mm-hmm.
So this is where this was coming from. So he went to the school and he confronted the teachers. He says, "What are you teaching my children?
Mm-hmm.
What are you teaching my children? If this is what's going to be, I can take them home and teach them better myself than what you're teaching here."
And actually, there are a lot of people that are homeschooling
Yeah,
their children over issues like that.
right. Exactly.
Over issues of just being able to teach them a consistent moral code and consistent view of
Right.
reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, but when I'm saying we get that, I know we first started about talking about Vermont, which isn't the only state.
Yeah.
But it seems like to be one of the states who really, the state isn't really looking at what should be.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're becoming very lax in their moral standards, in acceptance of what's going on in society. And you begin to wonder, well, where's this all taking us?
Yeah.
I remember when I used to drive, I can remember where people took chances and they weren't even using cell phones and they would ride the line. Now we got cell phones and now you're going to people on marijuana. It's going to make it even worse than even to worry about driving.
Yeah.
And that's only a small part of the matter right now.
Yeah.
So, I just can't fathom where some of these people, their thinking is coming from. To me, it doesn't make any sense.
And I think that's one of the things that the church needs to continue to do.
Yeah.
Speak the truth.
Right.
I think we always have to speak the truth
Right.
with love,
Right.
with respect, but we need to be speaking the truth.
Right.
And, the truth is God loves us. The truth is God has given us guidance as to what is right and wrong, and we need to respond appropriately.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere down the road, this will all, even out in the end. But
Yeah.
I know you as a bio ethics professor, you're trying your best to try to bring out forth what should be done. But you do what you can do.
Yeah. Show up and speak the truth.
That's right. So anyway, maybe somewhere, somehow, the Lord will intervene even stronger and something.
The Lord is intervening.
Yeah, but
Through you and me.
well, you got a
And through
point.
all of us.
You got a point there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
And I always enjoy doing a show with you anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, we got a lot to talk about either way, one way or another. And so this is about the third or fourth show we've done together. But anyway, I enjoy it, and I'll have it come down again sometime.
Okay.
Some more.
Be happy to.
I appreciate it. So, like I say, hopefully that people enjoy what we've discussed and maybe take it to heart,
Yeah.
and see what they can do for us in regards to trying to keep Vermont, on the right path.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So for the people watching the show, I enjoy you watching it. And any comments or questions, please get a hold of me. And until we meet again, may Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.